Hey, we're going to review The Last of Us. Yeah, this game came out June 14th, something like that, for PS3, and it was developed by Naughty Dog, and we're here to give our take on it.
Alright, first category we have here is presentation. That basically a rundown of what it looks like. The graphics of the game, the areas that you're playing in. What did you think of the how it looks? How's
I
it
think
appeal?
this is one of the most beautiful games ever made, to be honest with you. The destroyed beauty that you see, when the game starts, or even throughout the entire journey. Really, it's just mind-boggling. Some of the scenery is amazing. The animations, not only in combat but during the cutscenes, the animations are just flawless, and with the motion capturing and stuff, and the animations, showing emotion with the characters is just fantastically, just well executed. The character models themselves look fantastic. Some of the areas, such as, I don't know, later in the game, when there's some snowy areas, and even later, when you end up in Utah and stuff, it's just gorgeous, and it's seriously a breathtaking game visually in my mind that really makes the best use of what the PlayStation 3 can do. Yeah.
I think it's definitely on par with what the PlayStation 3 has done. I think coming to the close of this generation of consoles, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, it's at the peak of what this generation can do. I would say it's definitely on par with some of the better looking games, but I wouldn't go as far to say as it looks, absolutely spot on real, which, no game does. But I would say it's definitely on par. A lot of the cities, of course, were in ruin. There's a lot of rubble. Everywhere that you went, there was rubble. I guess that's expected in the game, being at 20 years after the infected sort of took over everything. Some of the cities are cool. You have a couple of sort of landmarks, I guess. A Capitol building in Boston, and just some of the cities looking at it. Even in the woods later in the game, that looked, fairly cool with the cutscenes of the animals and such. The cutscenes were fairly good, and like Tyler said, the emotion was definitely portrayed very well. As far as I'm concerned, I have only encountered one glitch in the game. It was later on in the game, during a snowy part of the game, where, well, no, maybe it wasn't. It was towards the end of the game in the hospital where I was killed, and the graphics disappeared, and it looked like a big cube, and I fell through the floor. For some reason, I don't know how that happened.
That's weird.
But just one glitch in the game. The infected bay looked like infected. I never got too close to them to really see, but they were definitely creative enough in the game. The runners looked like typical zombies, and the big bloater, I think that's what they call bloaters. They looked, like they should, and everything was sort of, good there. What about the mechanics of the game? How it felt to play the game, shooting, running, playing the game itself, controlling your player.
I thought this game played really, really good. It takes a little while to get used to it. At first, I couldn't. Some of the controls were kind of different from a lot of things that I was playing, and the whole concept of survival. I never played anything like that in a really long time, or I haven't, I guess to say. And I felt shooting was really, really realistic in that not every bullet would really hit somebody. Like, if you're aiming a pistol, it was kind of hard to shoot, and I thought it was kind of cool. It was kind of realistic. You felt they did a good job making you, when you run or you move or you shoot or something, you kind of in ways feel like you're actually doing those motions, and that kind of the sluggishness sometimes of Joel that you play. It was kind of cool. I really liked the whole kind of survival type stuff. The gameplay just overall was fantastic. I felt it was really varied though, because I think that's one of the strongest parts is that sometimes you'll be fighting, human enemies, and then other times you'd be fighting infected, and it never felt like you were doing one thing too much compared to the other one. I thought, how you could upgrade certain abilities, like a hearing ability. The hearing ability is really useful, being able to, hear through walls and kind of see what's going on, see where enemies are. Stealth combat is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, at times you really have to rely on stealth. There's certain combat scenarios that you don't even have to fight anything. You can just sneak by and you can just, use stealth. And just like I was saying about the survival stuff, I mean, having to salvage parts to make, health kits or shivs, which are extremely useful in possibly, taking clickers out or opening doors so you can get even more supplies or something like that. I liked how ammo was pretty much limited, and you were really forced to, not just go balls out, shooting everything. And I also liked some of the really useful weapons, like Molotov cocktails or nail bombs, nail bombs are just funny to use. I really enjoyed them. And I also liked how, you could pick up bricks or bottles or something and use them as either a distraction or, just throw at somebody and then go up and get them or something. Overall, I felt this game played rather differently than a lot of games out there. And I thought it was very fresh, the gameplay when I played it.
Yeah, I don't have many complaints. I wouldn't even say complaints, plural. The only thing that was a bit... it didn't go as smooth as the rest of the game. I thought at first was the shooting itself. Maybe because that was a more difficult aspect of the game. It definitely wasn't Call of Duty or any game that the primary focus of the game is shooting. But controlling the character, I thought it all felt smooth, jumping, climbing, a lot of that. It went off without a hitch. The sneaking around, that at times I'm not the best at it, but it was fun. It was very I'll get to it a little bit later, but it was intense, to say the least. But it definitely felt very real. Sometimes, of course, it was a bit, of course that's a video game. When you're sneaking around and someone's looking directly at you and they don't see you, of course that's a video game. I mean, that's one of the fun things about, getting out of there just in time. Or, that type of shenanigans. But as far as the shooting went, at first I was a little, put off about it, but I got the hang of it, and it started to be fun, because on the harder modes, the more difficult modes, there isn't this thing, lock-on targeting, which there is in the easy mode, which is definitely helpful and definitely makes it easy. But in the harder modes, you have to aim yourself, which, it has its goods and bads. It makes the game more difficult and so on. And next we'll be talking about the game itself, the gameplay, what the game includes, the storyline, the playthrough, what you thought about the game, the weapons, how everyone acted, who was in the game, just the game itself. When you played from start to end, how did you feel while you were playing it?
I don't think I have sat down and played a game in a straight session as long as I played this game. I was hooked with the story. The story is just really, I feel masterfully. Here, I'll say this. The story can seem very cliche at times. It can seem like it's kind of been done before, but the way it is done, and to me, there is no video game out there that makes you really get kind of emotionally attached to the characters and make you care about them as well as The Last of Us has done. You know, throughout the whole journey, you know, which it's just you go through so many, you know, roller coasters of, you know, kind of like you just don't want anything to happen to any of the characters at all. And when they do, you know, you're kind of sad because I mean these characters are just so well portrayed. I feel the dialogue and the voice acting for Joel and Ellie are, and pretty much every character out there. Tess, Sam. I'm trying to think who else. Um, the Firefly chick. What's her name? Marlene. Yes, I might be good with the name. I just feel that the voice acting is just perfect for, you know, who the characters are, and they really, you know, they really like I don't know. The characters are just fantastic in this game, and the story overall was just a journey that I feel that everyone should experience. It's one of the most breathtaking experiences I've ever had with the story. It's just so many just unforgettable moments. I mean, I haven't played this game too much recently. I haven't played it in a while because I've been playing other stuff, but I still could sit down and tell you everything that happened in that story, when it happened, because it's just all so memorable. And I feel like the combat really complements, you know, the gameplay. And there's just so many scenarios that are just, to me, wonderful. It's just, I don't know, it's just really something that I feel that every video game fan should experience. If you're, you know, even someone in, like, casually into games or something, just, you got to experience this story. To me, it's like a real, an interactive movie in which you get to play through the entire thing. The journey, you know, across the country, and the whole story is just marvelous. So I think it's the best. It's obviously, I think in a lot of people's minds, the greatest part about this game is the story, is how well it's done. There's been so many games about, you know, post-apocalyptic worlds and, you know, infected people. But I just feel the way that this was done was just fantastic. It just seemed like every detail was paid, you know, fine attention to. And it's just fantastic. Overall, this just was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I probably should have started off the review with a little bit of, you know, a sum up of what it is. You play as Joel, a smuggler that lives in Boston, and eventually you run into, you know, going about your daily life, you encounter Marlene, leader of the Fireflies, which is a group that's out to find a cure, out to reestablish government in a post-apocalyptic world, and you sort of, what Joel eventually has to do is take this child off of the Marlene's hands, the leader of the Fireflies, and you set off to take this child. At first you're not sure where you're going, but you eventually set off to take this child out to find a cure for humanity. You'll have to play the game to, of course, get, you know, the fine specifics of it. But it's along the lines of traveling across America with a young girl to save humanity. To start off the game, in Boston is where you begin. It started off slow, almost as many games predictably would. Being that the first few minutes of the game, you deal with the trial mission. Being you're running around your city, You know, you're finding out the controls of the game. You know what you have to do. You know what guns look like. You know what to collect. You basically get the rundown of what you're going to be dealing with the next 10, 20 hours or so. To me, it did start off a little slow, but that's just because I was raring and ready to play the rest of the game. It does seem a bit slow until you meet Ellie, the girl that Joel is traveling across the country with, and then things start to get real, you could say. You travel outside of the city, you encounter your first outside infected, and the game sort of begins there, at least how I saw it. After you leave Boston, you leave the safe area, which in this game is definitely different from other post-apocalyptic games, where there are groups of survivors. They are a bit evil, you could say, maniacal, the bad guys. They survive, they kill whoever they need to. They are basically just gangs, you could say. They are set up all across the country, which is a lot different than other post-apocalyptic games such as Left 4 Dead, where it's mainly you and your group against the zombies. You versus the world. It's a lot of you versus zombies versus bad guys versus even eventually the Fireflies in some parts of the game. But throughout the game, all the different enemies that you are facing, the runners, basically the basic zombies. The clickers that only they can only figure out where you are by sound. And then rarely the bloaters. They are the big boss guys of the zombie world. And they will, you know, they're definitely difficult to beat, the more difficult ones. It goes up in difficulty. You're facing them or human beings which are more alert and more inept to your movements and what you're doing exactly. I felt this game definitely kept you on your tippy toes. You felt the tension in the game way too often. That's not a bad thing. Way too often. Whether it be sneaking around, there were parts in this game that made me feel alive while playing it, which doesn't happen in games like Call of Duty because it's so routine, or games like Left 4 Dead where a shotgun blast will take out a few zombies. This game, I felt my heart beating so often in this game when I was sneaking around and, you know, that, oh my gosh, that guy just saw me moment, but I got away from it. Or once you scurry past a large group of human beings, or so on, you feel that relief of the tension. That definitely plays into the impact on you while playing that game. It's definitely personal. You get the feeling from the game, you connect to it. And I thought that was definitely a plus to the game. And way too often, I would find myself crouching and using my hearing ability just to see what's around me, because I never felt safe in this game. That is so pristine in this game because you never feel safe. It's good and it's bad. It's bad because eventually you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. You feel like you're never out of the fire. But it's good because it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you interesting rather than just running around and eventually it gets boring and, you know, you encounter the next group and it feels routine. You are always on your tippy toes. As far as the enemies go, I felt that the humans were definitely a lot easier to kill because it's human-on-human combat. It's not these crazy zombies that will run at you and one bite will kill you, like with the clickers. You have a fighting chance more so against the humans, but they both have their ups and downs. Maneuvering through the towns, that had its goods and its bads to it. For me, in some of the places, I could not find where to go. I could not find the ladder, the dumpster to climb on, where I put the dumpster sometimes because the hints were just not evident enough. At certain parts, like, for example, in the town, before I met Bill, I could not find the ladder to get on top of the moving truck, or the carrier truck, whatever you would like to call it, after the music, around the area of the music store. Certain things like that were so slightly difficult for me, because sometimes I just did not know where to go. I was left wandering and walking around, and finally it hit me. That took away the momentum of the game, just a slight amount, but it wasn't long before the momentum came back, and I was, knee-deep in feces, you could say, trying to escape zombies or humans or something, or hide from them somewhere. But more on the town of Bill, it just kept sticking it to me over and over again, because I kept getting into those areas of what do I do? How do I get past this part? And eventually it hits me and I think, wow, man, I was stupid. But the weapons of the game were definitely your basic weapons, you could say. Pistols, shotguns. There was an addition of a bow and a rifle and a flamethrower that maybe not many other games have. The rifle being a hunting rifle, not an assault rifle. Although that's later in the game, you have the assault rifle. You have secondary weapons, such as a variety of pistols, and the things that you make. You collect all of these items, and you can craft them into health packs, into nail bombs, as Tyler said, Molotov cocktails, shivs, this, that, all of it. Even smoke bombs, which I didn't use I didn't use a lot. I think I used one smoke bomb, and that was just to see what it was. But the game itself definitely was intense, and you felt the tension of the game creeping up on you at every second, and that made the game. That's what it was. The momentum never died off in the game. Which really made it a well-rounded game, I think. Being that the momentum was always there, because certain games will lose momentum or you will get bored after a while. That didn't happen. In the 12 hours it took me to beat it the second time through, I still felt on my toes the entire 12 hours, which, isn't the longest game in the world, but it's enough to have the experience. And, altogether, what did you really think of the game? To sum it all up, your lasting feelings of it, when you beat the game, afterwards, what stuck with you? How did you feel about it? How do you feel about it looking back on it?
I think this is one of the best games of this generation. By far, the best game that I've played this year. It was just probably one of the best games that I've played of all time. It was just, like I've said so many times, it is just an amazing experience. It's fun, it's intense, and it's just got a really gripping story that just will not let you go until you finish it. And once you finish it, you immediately want to play it again. And it's just so many moments in here that are just some of my most favorite when it comes to playing games. So, yeah.
To really sum up the game after I finished it, it was a wonderful game. Sometimes frustrating, being the areas in the subway. If you know what I'm talking about, when you're in the water and you can't see even a foot in front of you in the game. You could not see where you're going, or you can't find the ladder, as I was saying. It's also a relieving game when you do find that ladder, when you sneak past the zombies, when you get to the next checkpoint in the game. It's definitely a game that, like I said, does not lose its motivation. It keeps you on your toes. The tension is always there in the game, which is definitely exciting. It's thrilling. It's almost a movie, if you can understand that. It's a game, you play through, you make stuff. A lot of it is just spare time going from point A to point B. But the main events, I think, were definitely originally formatted as a movie. At least that's what I could truly believe this game to be. It started out as, what would make a good movie? Let's make that into a video game. It's definitely well scripted, as Tyler said, and to play through it, as I've said a million times so far, it feels like it does not lose its momentum, it does not lose its it factor during the game. Everything, it feels like you are about to die at any second, which is wonderful about this game. And the difficulties definitely translate into an easier or more difficult game, which in some games isn't too evident, but in this game it's definitely clear which difficulty you picked. So, out of a rating of, let's say, 10, what would you give this game?
I would give it, to be honest with you, I would give it a 10 out of 10.
I'll
I don't see any flaws with it.
I'll have to go with Tyler and a lot of the bigger game reviewing places and give it a 10 out of 10.
I mean, at times, you know, it'll have its little moment where it's a little frustrating or slightly difficult and, you know, whatever, but there's nothing wrong with this game.
It's definitely one of the major releases of this generation of consoles, and like Tyler said, and how he sort of sold me on this game was that the story was something else. And while it is at sometimes a bit, you feel like you know what's going to happen, and you know that Ellie is not going to die at this part or something. It's nice watching the relationship between Joel and Ellie, two stranded survivors. It's sort of a tale of humanity coming together within two people. But that sums up all I have to say about it. It covers many fields in this game, being suspense, being scare your pants off, being fun, being sneaky. It covers many areas.
You picked a hell of a place to hold up, didn't you?
And that's our review of The Last of Us. Definitely check this game out. It is a gem for sure. There's also DLC coming out for it. I'm sure we'll have a lot on that. And we'll see you around. Thanks for watching.
Gonna hold 'em?
Well, I locked it. They don't have a key.
So which way?
We're here. It's in the cellar.